Hello and welcome to this repair tutorial, and today we're going to look at an Arcam, and this model number is Alpha 7R, and the R indicating that the amplifier would be provided with a small remote control used to operate the volume and also put the amplifier into mute. This amplifier was made available for sale in 1999 and in the UK retailed for just under £299. In terms of general specification, power output is 45 watts into 8 ohm speakers, and then this will increase up to 80 watts if you connect 4 ohm speakers, and your speaker impedance range would be from 4 up to a maximum of 16 ohms. And then frequency response is 20 Hz to 20 kHz, and total harmonic distortion comes in at 0.01%. And then in terms of input sensitivity, for the moving magnet where you connect the turntable directly, it is 2.7 millivolts. So there is no requirement for an external equalizer or preamp. And then for all of your other inputs, those are 250 millivolts. And then the amplifier also has a preamplifier output, so you can connect this to additional power amplifiers as you wish, and this is 510 millivolts. And then overall dimensions, height is 85 millimeters by a width of 430 and a depth of 330. And weight comes in at 4.5 kilograms. Now the amplifier in terms of input selection is mechanical, so it doesn't use any type of electronic switching or indeed relays internally. The only relay that you will see is for the rear speaker protection. So all inputs are selected from the front fascia. The push button next to it in between the selection button and then also the volume control is if you're going to select tape, and you also have the ability to go source direct, so this will bypass the tone control circuits, and if it's not enabled then you have separate bass, treble and balance controls, and then your headphone socket. Now on the rear the speaker connections are switched or unswitched, so just clarifying there, if they are switched, when you connect the headphones it will mute the connection to the external speakers. So if we just talk for a moment with regard to what was the issue with this amplifier, well, it was the most common one, which is always reported, which is intermittent loss of sound. So when you look here from the top of the amplifier, you can see that on the right hand side you see the toroidal. Where you see this foam material, those are the large electrolytic smoothing capacitors. To the rear you've got two sets of heat sinks, so this is where the MOSFETs are bolted onto. And then at the left hand side towards the rear, this is your input RCA sockets. Now unlike the 8R amplifier, the input for the moving magnet cannot be switched out to go to a high level input, and it uses a single dual operational amplifier. You can see here that there is a microcontroller, so this is the component which is in the socket, and you can see that there's a small orange label on top. That microcontroller will send the command signal then, and in turn it will operate the motor on the motorized volume potentiometer, and then it will also send a command signal if the amplifier is placed into mute to de-energize the speaker protection relay. Now, in terms of strip down for the amplifier, it is very straightforward, so you just need to remove the front bezel. So you just pull off the volume control knob and the other associated user control knobs, put them to one side, and the way in which you remove the bezel, you've got fixing screws left and right, so there's two each side, and then underneath you just unclip it and it will come away. And then what you can see here is the amplifier main board is still in the chassis, so if you need to remove that, which of course we do for the repair and service, what you have to do is to remove the fixing screws at the rear. You're not looking to remove the back panel. You leave that in place because of course the MOSFETs are connected to that, and then you have a series of screws which go through the board to the common ground connection on the chassis, and then you'll have left and right fixing screws, and then once you remove those you'll be able to undo the bolt which secures the toroidal transformer locking plate into position, and once you've done that you can then lift out the main board. And then here what we show you is the solder side of this board, and this is very common. So what I've done is I've just circled around all the common areas where you will always have dry solder joints. So when you look here on the left hand side nearest to us, these are the input RCA sockets, and what you'll find is that there will be cracks around the solder joints. And then just in terms of clarification, when I refer to the term reflow, what I'm simply meaning there is that you will take new solder and then you will use your soldering iron then to heat up the solder joint and then melt new solder. Sometimes what you can find is that some of the solder, particularly where you have components which are heat affected, you may first of all desolder them and then apply new solder. And then next to the RCA sockets coming up are the MOSFETs, and you'll tend to find that these are dry jointed and also the component leads are cut very low to the circuit board. The next set are the speaker terminals, and then just in view on the right hand nearest to us again is the Euro socket for the power input. There's always dry joints there, and then when you're towards the front, what you can see then is that we have the headphone socket, the speaker set 2 selection button, and then the treble, bass and balance controls, and you'll always find dry joints around the pins there. And then the next one is the source direct. When you move a little bit towards the center of the board off to the left, you can see that there's 2 sets of circles. These are the voltage regulators, so again they run warm, so you need to reflow them. And then as you move towards the left hand side, what you'll then see is the input multi-pin selector switch. There are always dry joints on there. And then here what you can see is the input selection switch, which has been removed from the circuit board. So it's a case of removing the locking nut. As you can see, it's just in view. Once you have taken it apart, as you can see here, you can see oxidization on the contacts. So you have the contacts and then what we term as the wafers. And what you need to use is a fiberglass pencil to just wipe away all of that oxidization. And then you can then apply De-Oxit spray and then a lubricating grease. And then once you reassemble the switch, what you'll find is that the issue associated with the intermittent loss of sound due to the oxidization will have gone. Now when you reposition the switch onto the board, just make sure that you apply a liberal amount of solder. Often with these amplifiers, like many, the amount of solder used to holding components was minimal, and this often led to mechanical stress and then eventually the solder joint failing and hence an intermittent connection. And then here what you can see is the volume control potentiometer, and it has its own circuit board, and you tend to find dry joints on the pins there as well. So again, they've been reflowed just to prevent any issue where maybe you get intermittent loss of sound associated with the volume control potentiometer. And then once that was done, we also focused as well on the speaker protection relay. And you'll see in the video later, I've removed the speaker protection relay and I just changed this as a matter of course. What you don't want is the oxidized and warm contacts, because this amplifier of course would have been in service since the original release, and that would result again in an issue associated with intermittent loss of sound. So it can be multiple. So you could, for example, have the speaker protection relay could be an issue. It could be the input selection switch. It may also be dirt on the volume, maybe bass control potentiometers or balance, or even treble. So again, what we do there is we use De-Oxit and we spray it in to all of the user controls, including the switches, and we work them backwards and forwards or operate them multiple times until all that oxidization is clear. And normally I use a set of headphones so you can do very, very clear listening, and then you'll be able to tell once there's no crackle noise or no noise or scratchy noise associated with dirty user controls. So once that work is done, what we now focus on is the alignment of the amplifier. So what you can see here is an extract from the service manual, and this is the right channel. Now what I'm looking at here is to make the adjustment for the output MOSFETs. Now with the 7R, you can see here that we have a range from 3 to 3.4 millivolts. So you would operate the amplifier, leave it on test, warming up for about 15-20 minutes, stable environment, not any drafts, and you would have no speakers connected, no headphones connected, volume set at minimum, and then your bass, treble and balance controls would all be set then to midpoint. Once you've done that, what you're looking to do then is to connect your multimeter, as you see here, across one of the resistors, as shown previously in the circuit schematic. And you can see here that it is low. It's down at 2.84 millivolts, and this is the left channel, and you found pretty much around the same reading for the right channel. So then what you have to do is to adjust the presets, and what you'll find is there's a small little sealing agent onto the preset potentiometers. Don't be frightened just to break that seal. It's more so like a nail varnish which they applied at the factory. And then once you've done the adjustment, as you see here, then I've set this to a nominal 3.3 millivolts, and that's both the same for the left channel that you see, and then here also for the right channel. So both are identical. And then once that is done, we then put the amplifier on test, probably for about 2 to 3 hours. We're just ensuring that there's no underlying issue, maybe another problem which may well manifest itself. And in this case, we didn't see any other issues affecting the amplifier, so it cleared all of the functional tests. And then what you can see here is the Omron speaker protection relay. Now it is a sealed unit, it's quite compact as you see, but nothing that you can sort of split apart and then you can try and clean the contacts. That's not going to work, so you do a complete replacement. So really that brings us to the end of this short repair tutorial, and again, like many times before, if you have any questions or you need any help or support, by all means email audio amplifier servicing at aol.com and I'll be more than happy to help and provide any support that you may require. So until the next time, I wish you all the very best. Cheers and bye bye.